Hey y'all, Script on Critics. I'm here to do a review of Revenge of the Nerds, starring Robert Carradine, Anthony Edwards, Timothy Busfield, Andrew Casis, Curtis Armstrong, Laurie B. Scott, Brian Tochi, Julia Montgomery, Ted McGinley, Donald Gibb, and John Goodman. Uh, I had never seen this movie beforehand. This movie came out, definitely before I was born. It came out in 1984. It was directed by Jeff Canu. This movie is beyond ridiculous. It's practically camp. Reminds me a lot of the film But I'm Just a Cheerleader. I believe that was directed by the most famous drag queen RuPaul, and RuPaul is also in the film. But this movie, deals a lot with nerd pride and prejudice against nerds, especially in its setting in the 80s. United States in the 80s. Now, yes, there is still nerd discrimination today. I think a lot of people would agree that it was definitely worse at that time. I would say it's better now. Now, it's more about now there's bullying between different types of nerds based off fandoms or certain sciences. Sometimes we lean into a more political light, I believe. There's discrimination definitely towards the Brony community, the anime community, people that enjoy cartoons, role-playing gamers, all types of different walks of life. But thing that we all love is that we have some kind of connection, or some kind of understanding of something that is not just living life. It gives us it can give us purpose. It can give us just something of entertainment value. But it's usually something that we do cherish. Problem is, if someone deems it, not cool, you can be ostracized in so many ways. And this movie shows it pretty well that all the nerds that we meet, they basically team up and they find their own home to have on this college campus. It's Adams College, and their mascot and their thing is the pun of atoms and atoms. So it's kind of interesting as a thematic element that the nerds that we follow, for the most part, are very technically minded. They're very into science and math. Like our two main characters build a robot that can help clean up, sort of like Roomba, but more shaped like R2D2. And it's definitely interesting to see them, go from, they're still pretty weak and fragile. This movie deals a lot with cliches and stereotypes. Our main two nerds, especially when we see them, they sniffle and cackle a lot when they laugh. They wear pocket protectors with pens. They're always wearing bow ties with ill-fitting shirts and socially awkward. They have big bifocal glasses. Your typical, someone told you to draw a nerd. That's the cartoon that you would come up with. But they come into their own. This is their first time in college. They're moving away from their home. Two main characters are Lewis and Gilbert. And you know, one is definitely more dominant in the relationship. They're really good friends, and they meet character Booger, Wormser, Lamar, Tadashi. Wormser is a 12-year-old that is so intelligent that he was able to skip grades and now he's in college. There is Booger, who is probably the most entertaining character, even though this movie does have memorable characters. He is very different. He Out of all of them, he seems like, you know, the least of the typical nerd. He is more of the outcast than I would say anybody. But he likes to toe the line of being cool. He's also a big stoner, and he is a bit womanizing. And you know, it's fun. He has a lot of unexpected, you know, dark comedy lines. I would say a good portion of his lines are, you know, just completely not what you're expecting to hear from a movie that's mostly, you know, really lighthearted. The nerds, they had to build up this really crappy house, and you know, they have a wonderful 80s montage to clean up everything. And after that, they want to find a fraternity that they can be accepted in. The reason that that they came together is the jocks were getting drunk, and somebody accidentally caught some curtains on fire in their dorm house, and the dorm caught on fire. None of the jocks got hurt. You know, nobody died or anything, but the jocks needed a new place, and they took over the nerds' dorm, and the nerds were left in a gym, and it was cramped, and people were always playing ball. So you know, I don't know how they could relax in any way, and it was just horrible all the way through. Another one of the nerds is the gay guy. He's also black. Lamar. He is definitely entertaining, even though some of these characters, you know, can definitely be argued absolutely that they are, you know, pretty one note. So sometimes how they play off each other, it is pretty fun. There is Poindexter. He has a cliched name already. Once again, cliches, not a problem. How you do them, that's everything to me. He has really bad eyesight. He has these really thick glass eyeglasses. He's always playing the violin and bumping into shit. And there is Tadashi, who is the Asian. I probably had the most amount of laughs just out of the stereotypical sight gags with him. Like, he wears a white headband with, you know, the red Japanese sun and some Japanese characters on the side. He ends up wearing like a pilot's hat that looks very similar to a kamikaze or zero plane pilot. He pours beer into a sake glass. He says "frush" instead of "flush." There's so much shit with this. I probably shouldn't be laughing, but you know, once again, you know, you can make almost anything, you know, into a good joke as long as you play it well. You know, as long as it fits, you know, the subject matter, and you know, it's played off well and has good writing behind it. You know, because people like, Michael Bay and what was it? Or the Wayans brothers will do, you know, racial stereotypes or sexual stereotypes in their films, but pretty much every time it does not work at all. Like, it is already dead in the water by the time it hits the screen. But you know, it can be a hard line to toe, considering how you display cliches and stereotypes, especially ones that are sensitive, because a lot of people will turn on it if you don't put your heart or your mind into it. Definitely. Uh, but at the same time, there are plenty of stereotypes, not just against the nerds in this, but the jocks. Holy shit, they are unbelievably meatheadish, and even the ones that are more sophisticated, they're complete douches. Like there's a character Ted McGinley who is dating like the leading cheerleader from a paternity, and this is where there's a bit of an awkward scene. Like, even though this is pretty good coming age goofy movie stuff you can laugh at, definitely, there's a weird scene where after the nerds get their revenge, liquid heat is put on to the jog straps, and the guys, the nerds, bust into the paternity, maternity, and they put on cameras so they can peep on the girls. So after we have stalking of the nerds on the women, we have our main character Lewis dress up in a costume that the douchey guy Ted was wearing, and then he has sex with Betty, the girl that he's been dating, the cheerleader, and she is completely unaware that that is not Ted. And even though it gets to probably one of the most famous lines, all nerds as good as you, which I do like that's in here, but in the context it's really awkward. It's, to me, other than some of how the narrative goes into random places and it doesn't feel streamlined until the very end, that's probably the weakest and very possibly offensive. Like, I don't necessarily dislike it. I'm not like vomiting at the there being a form of rape essentially in his film, but I could understand completely why this would like really disgust and disturb people. And it's only in retrospect that people more see it now, because back in that time we really didn't think about that. We even now some people only see rape as something that is undeniably like hurting abuse, where you can see bruises and such, but anything just without consent in a sexual act can automatically be deemed as rape. So she didn't give a consent to this other person, so yeah, take it how you will. That's all I'm going to say with that. It's a very interesting scene where our nerds try to appeal to a paternity, and it's a black paternity, and they only have one black guy, and it starts off awkward, but then they earn the respect of the guy who leads that paternity, and they get accepted. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun with this movie. There are a few scenes that I don't feel like have to be in there. I wasn't a big fan of the final, the final music number that's performed by our protagonist. Like, yeah, yes, it was goofy, and yes, it fits with other goofy shit, but I'm just not a fan of the song. It's pretty goddamn dumb. Oh yeah, overall, I would not feel disingenuous, and just seeing the characters' arcs from Lewis, Gilbert, and Betty. I think this is a movie that I can give a B plus, and yeah. So tell me what y'all guys think. Seeing a weird '80s music and soundtrack, and movie has excellent framing. I'll give it that. But anyway, probably Krypton Critics. I love you.